For years after the Vietnam War ended, a new front took shape, not only along the rice fields and border posts of the southwest, but across the sea. In the Gulf of Thailand, Vietnam's island chain became an early testing ground for a conflict that erupted almost immediately after reunification. In May 1975, Khmer Rouge forces struck at Phu Quoc and then seized the Go Chu Islands, abducting the island's inhabitants and killing more than 500 Vietnamese civilians. Vietnam's Navy and armed forces counterattacked, and Ngo Chu was retaken on May 27, 1975, an island battle that was small in geography, but enormous in meaning, because it signaled that the new peace could be challenged from the water as easily as from the land. Wikipedia 1. From that moment, the Southwestern War was never purely a story of border markers on a map. It was also a story of channels, river mouths, coastal routes, and night waters where the difference between a fishing boat and an infiltration craft could be measured only by suspicion and timing. In the Mekong Delta, waterways were not just scenery. They were movement corridors, supply lines, and vulnerable seams. As Khmer Rouge attacks intensified in 1977 and 1978, pressure fell not only on inland provinces like Anjong and Tay Ninh, but also on coastal communities where every unfamiliar engine sound in the dark carried the fear of another raid. Wikipedia. In that kind of war, the Vietnam People's Navy was not defined only by large ships on open water. Its role stretched into quieter, relentless missions, patrolling the coast, guarding island outposts, controlling sea approaches, protecting military transport, and enabling joint operations in areas where roads could not keep pace with the battlefield. Along the southwestern maritime frontier, defending sovereignty and protecting life often became the same task, because a late supply run could mean a weakened outpost, and a missed contact at sea could become a tragedy on shore. By 1978, the conflict had grown into something broader, where victory depended on coordination across services. A recorded example of that escalation appears in the fighting at Con Binh on February 5, 1978, described as a division-level combined arms engagement involving infantry, air power, naval forces, armor, and artillery. It was a clear sign that the sea and waterways were not a separate theater. They were part of the same battlefield structure, feeding and shaping the ground war at the frontier. Wikipedia 1. Late in 1978, Khmer Rouge pressure surged further, and Vietnam moved into a large-scale counteroffensive. On December 25, 1978, Vietnam launched a full invasion of democratic Kampuchea. Phnom Penh fell on January 7, 1979, and the Khmer Rouge regime was removed from the capital. But a fast-moving land campaign also demanded control of the coast, because Cambodia's ports and naval bases could sustain resistance, enable movement, or open escape routes. If the coastline remained contested, the war could regenerate, supplies could slip in, forces could regroup, and the sea could become a back door into the conflict. Wikipedia 2. That is why one of the most distinctive naval episodes of the 1978 to 1979 phase was an amphibious operation described as the Bacher Landing Campaign. According to Vietnam's National Defense Journal, on December 22, 1978, the Vietnam People's Navy was assigned a crucial operational direction: land at Bacher Beach, destroy and contain the enemy's coastal defense forces, protect the flanks, coordinate with ground forces along the shoreline, and take responsibility for attacking and controlling the port of Kampong Som, Sihanouk, and the naval base at Ream, effectively separating southeastern Cambodia. Bacher itself was a difficult landing zone, roughly 300 meters long at the base of Bacher Mountain in Kampot Province, with unfavorable terrain and hydrological conditions that complicated amphibious assault planning. Tap Chi Klok Phong Ton Dan 3. Across that narrow strip of shore, the defenses were substantial. The same account describes enemy forces in the area totaling more than 5,000 troops and 172 vessels of various types. On the Vietnamese side, a large naval grouping was committed. Units from Naval Zone 5, Marine Forces, transport and combat fleets, and coordination with other services including Regiment 962 of Military Region 9, ground forces from Army Corps 2, and aircraft from the Air Defense, Air Force. It was combined arms warfare extended onto water.
Secure the
Ships
perimeter.
and craft opening the approach,
secured.
landing
Proceed as
forces
planned.
seizing
Roger
the
that.
beachhead, firepower
Moving to
suppressing
objective.
key points, and logistics turning the shoreline into a functioning corridor as quickly as possible. Tap Chi Kwok Fong Tone Dan 3. In amphibious warfare, success is not only landing, it is maintaining tempo. Bakr was not a romantic image of waves and flags. It was a time-critical equation shaped by tide, terrain, and enemy fire. Every minute offshore increased exposure. Every meter gained on the sand had to become stable ground immediately so that the operation could expand, connect,
Teams
and
assemble.
support the
Move
broader
out.
advance. Strategically, the logic was stark. Once coastal nodes and port access were controlled, the enemy's mobility and resupply options narrowed, while the attacking force gained a new logistics axis, one that could relieve pressure on roads and keep momentum when the battlefield shifted faster than infrastructure could follow. Seen in the full arc of the southwestern conflict, Bakr illustrates that the Navy did not merely participate. It helped shape the coastal tempo of the 1978 to 1979 campaign. And even as operations pushed forward inside
All
Cambodia,
units maintain
Vietnam's
formation.
own southwestern islands remained a constant reminder of how the war began,
Contact spotted
from the
at this
sea,
coordinate.
with sudden landings and brutal consequences. Names like Po Quoc and No Chu were not distant points on a chart. They were frontline spaces where sovereignty was measured by presence, patrol, and the ability to respond before an attack became irreversible.
Maintaining course.
Wikipedia 1. The fall of Phnom Penh did not end the conflict in a clean line.
All sectors
After the
report
collapse
green.
at the center, the war shifted into a longer,
Target
more
confirmed.
complex phase as
All
Khmer
teams
Rouge
initiate
forces
movement to
withdrew
extraction
toward
point Alpha.
remote terrain and border regions, turning to guerrilla warfare. In that environment, waterways and coastal approaches remained critical, not only as supply routes for Vietnam's forces and partners, but as spaces that had to be controlled to prevent the conflict from re-entering Vietnam through the same maritime seams where it had first ignited. Wikipedia 2. If the Southwestern War on land is often remembered through border provinces and ground offensives, the naval story from 1975 to 1979 is a story of sovereignty at the edge of the surf. From the tragedy of Tho Chu in 1975, through the expanding duties of coastal defense and transport, to the decisive
Move the
amphibious
supplies to
pressure
higher ground
represented by the
immediately.
Bakr campaign at the end of
Move out.
1978. It leaves one clear lesson. In a border war, the coast is not the rear, islands are not distant, and the sea is never only a backdrop. The sea is a route in, a route out, and a place where a nation proves, again and again, that its border does not end at the shoreline. Tap Chi Kwok Fong Tone Dan 3.